You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the business show here live on Business Talk Radio and social media. I am your host and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. I'm a certified life and career coach. And with me today is a very special gentleman. His name is Al Cini. Al is my co-host and partner. It's good to see you, Al.
Dr. Jacalyn, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we've got a great show today. We've got a wonderful guest who's going to talk to us about the world of coaching that I think people are not really aware of, but definitely, I should say, not as aware of as they need to be, given everything that's going on in our lives today.
Well, you know, I spoke with an accountant yesterday, my accountant. He's been my accountant for a long time. I've spoken with business leaders this week. We're just getting geared up for tax season. People are wondering how to pay off their loans, their PPP loans. They're wondering when they're going to be able to get their employees back at work in the office. Everybody's totally spun up about all kinds of details. And our guest today, Tom Lancaster, has absolutely no advice on any of those subjects. Instead, he's talking about something deeper and more profound, and I think much more important. And that is, what is your spiritual center? What is it about you as a leader in a business that is getting lost under and buried possibly underneath all those details? And how could you dig out from under all that?
Exactly. I'm excited to have Tom on the show. Before we bring him out, Al, you are also in the people business. Why don't you share with us about the work you're doing at BCAT?
The Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit is about connecting people with purpose. That's what we do. And we have a process, a method with 3 steps involved where we identify the core purpose of a team or a group or a whole company. We articulate what that purpose ought to be, working with the leadership team, and then close the gap between what everybody thinks it is and what we all mindfully understand it should intentionally be. And the result of it is higher engagement, more profit, better success, and more deeper spiritual fulfillment on the part of everybody in the company, because the more engaged you are in your purpose, the happier you are, the more productive you are. It generally pays off for everybody in all kinds of ways.
Amen. A lot of positivity is what I heard.
Plenty of that.
And speaking of positivity, let's bring our guest out, Tom Lancaster from Vortex Strategy, all the way from Vancouver, Canada. It's nice to have you, Tom.
It is great to be here. Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn, for inviting me onto the show. And thank you, Al, for such a lovely, warm introduction.
And it's profound, too. I'll tell you, because I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and there isn't anything conventional about you, Tom. And it's the unconventional nature of what you do that I think offers the greatest reward for the conventional leader who believes that everything is about the letters of the alphabet from A to Z, one after another, and 2 + 2 always equals 4. So talk about what they're missing when they're lost under all those details.
Well, I think you spoke to it, Al, when you were talking about BCAT. You know, when we can connect to who we really are, to our spiritual core, I think was the word that you used. You know, it's so easy to get lost in the details and the tactics and the to-do lists and the taxes. You mentioned, you know, accountants and tax season and all that stuff that's going on right now. It's so easy to get buried underneath all of that and completely lose sight of the direction that we're traveling in. You know, we have this inner wisdom inside us that will guide us towards fulfillment. And the key is to allow ourselves to create space for that inner wisdom, for that voice, that intuition, higher self, whatever you want to call it, to be heard, so that we know that we are making decisions from a place of inspiration rather than from a place of fear. You know, especially as a business leader, especially right now during COVID, you know, and the economy, and, you know, there's so much fear in the world that exists right now. And when we react and respond from that place of fear, from the place of the bills aren't going to get paid, the staff are going to leave, I'm not going to meet the targets, the shareholders are going to be pissed, whatever it is, when we live our lives from that place of fear, we are trapped in that. But when we can connect deeply with ourselves, and when we can act from a place of inspiration, that's when we can create magic in the world. And that's when we can really demonstrate true leadership, is when we do the deep personal work to get our own baggage out of the way, our own childhood beliefs, the traumas that we've dealt with through our lives, the context with which we see the world. You mentioned 2 + 2 = 4. Well, that's not always true. One of the concepts that one of my mentors talks about is 1 + 1 = 11 relationships. We, especially in the world of business, it's, well, what am I going to give you this, and what are you going to give me in return, right? And does that equal up? Is it an equal exchange? But what happens when your skill set and my skill set create exponential results? That's a 1 + 1 = 11 relationship.
Interesting.
I feel like I could go on forever, but I think that gives a good understanding of where I come from. Is like, who do we be as a leader, as opposed to what do we do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Jacalyn, and what you do, I know that you're a big proponent of reminding people that the whole is not always just the sum of its parts. There's more to things than just the things. So an awful lot of what Tom is saying in the interview kind of echoes a lot of the coaching that you offer your clients.
That's very true. And, just from a personal perspective, when I look back years and, as our lives progress, we're always going to have things that we have to deal with that maybe we weren't expecting, people that in our lives, maybe they didn't turn out to be who we thought they were. But when we start to do the work on ourselves, which is what you've been talking about, we start to look at things in a different way. And the other thing is, when problems do come up, major problems, instead of taking it from an emotional perspective, we have to take that emotion, put it aside, and think like a strategic thought leader and follow our intuition as well. What are your thoughts about that, gentlemen?
So instantly, what I might have thought when you said that is, I actually would come from almost from the opposite position.
I like it. Let's hear it.
In the moment when there is a problem that needs to be dealt with, yes, you have to put your emotions to the side, and you have to, think about the practical logistics of getting to the other side. But in general, we're trained from an early age to always put our emotions to the side. Don't bring your personal life to work. Don't bring your emotions to work. We live in a society where we are taught that it's not safe to feel, or at least it's not safe to express our feelings. And when we don't express those feelings, emotion is energy in motion. And what these feelings, these sensations that we experience, are designed to, their messages, right? And we've lost the ability to interpret those messages. And so a lot of the work that I do with my clients is actually to bring them back into the feeling, right? I have to expand my team, and I'm scared because of something. Okay, well, what does that feel like? What does it feel like to be scared of being responsible for another 10 people? And from that place, when you can go into there, then you can understand where does that fear come from, and you can start to unwind it. But when we start from a place of emotions go to the side, then we're up into the intellect, and we're into the doing. And as I said, that's very important. But we need to, the more we can be in the being of, the more I can be in the being of me, of Tom Lancaster as a leader, then the more I can show up and fully express myself, and the more that people can relate to me on a human level.
Really good points. Make a lot of sense. So what about when you're in a situation as a leader and you are highly emotional? Maybe you're filled with anger. Maybe you're filled with dread. Maybe you're about to cry. You don't want anyone to see it. Is that a good time to make major decisions? It sounds like to me you're saying you need to get to the core of it, get to why you're feeling all of those things. Is that what you're saying?
So yeah, so again, there's a distinction for me there. The work, you know, if let's say you and I were working together, you know, I was your coach and you were my client. We would work together in our sessions, and I would give you practices outside of the sessions to get you more in touch with your inner world. And what that creates is space when you're in the moment. When the trigger happens, and you might normally fly off the handle or burst into tears or, you know, or run away or whatever your conditioned response is, you get a little bit of space from that. And while it's unlikely to be okay to fly into a fit of rage, you know, in an office situation or a business situation, it is acceptable to say, okay, I am feeling these things when you communicate this way to me. When this happens, it causes me to feel like I'm not safe or whatever. Can we work around this so that we come to a win-win for both of us? So it allows us to be less reactionary.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
I was having a conversation the other day with a business leader, guy I know. We've been friends for a long time. And his organization, well, they've really done all the right things, and they're firing on all 12 cylinders. They've doubled in size during a year when most people went away and never came back. And yet, as he was describing all that, he had on his face this look of kind of fear and oppression. As happy as he should have been with all the success he's realized, there was something about the fear of that success that came through in the way he was communicating. And I'm thinking to myself, as happy as you ought to be, you want to sound happier when you're talking about all the success you've had. Why do you sound like people are calling you all the time and you don't have any time to yourself, and you don't? It's a weird kind of a world where it almost seemed as though he painted himself into a corner of success and wasn't happy there. Yeah. You work with people. I guess you've seen that yourself, Tom?
Absolutely. Because, so, I mean, obviously I don't know this person, but from what you've described there, they have a context around success, which may include, you know, it's temporary. Someone's going to take it away. I need to protect myself. I can't enjoy myself, or I'll lose everything that I've built. You know, there's all of these stories that we have that don't feel like stories. They are abject truths as far as we're concerned. As far as I am concerned, any time that I take off, this isn't something I believe, but this is, you know, something that is true for a lot of people. If I take time off, my business will suffer, right? You know, especially entrepreneurs, they work 14-hour days, 7 days a week for years and years and years. And then 5 years later, they're burnt out. You know, for me personally, I have a whole story and a whole context around it's not safe to feel because of my childhood. I was at boarding school from a very young age. I was bullied at school. My parents divorced. And so I have this whole reality built up around the fact that it's not safe for me to feel or to express my feelings. And so that's my personal work that I'm doing with my coach, is to get more in touch with that myself so that this stuff doesn't show up in the workplace and it doesn't get in the way of me achieving my goals of financial success, of leadership, of building this business to a certain level, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh. We're talking an awful lot about business people. Who is your typical client? Who do you typically work with?
And by the way, guys, we have to take a break. I'm sorry to interrupt. We'll come back on that. And Tom, thank you for your transparency in that share. That was really wonderful.
Very important.
So we'll be right back here on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the business show, live on Business Talk Radio and social media. Stay with us.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our Ministry Alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn. My name is Al Cini, and our host and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, is also in the house. Dr.
Hello,
Jacalyn,
hello.
you have found a terrific guest today. His name is Tom Lancaster, and Tom Lancaster addresses the invisible elephant in everybody's room. What is going on inside of you that is keeping you from what you really want? No matter how successful you might be, that elephant could be there, and you need somebody like Tom to help you find it and tame it. So, Tom, just before the break, we were talking about who your client typically is. I know we reach out to a lot of business people, but is it always a business leader, or who else tends to call you?
So, the two aspects of my approach, my ethos, and with my business partner are adventure and spirituality. We haven't really touched on the adventure part of it, but just very briefly, adventure for me is stepping into the unknown out into the world. Spirituality is stepping into the unknown within. And spirituality is an adventure. And when we go on an adventure, we have a spiritual experience. So there's a very brief summary of what I call adventure consciousness. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, on Instagram, you refer to yourself as Climbing Tom. And when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, I see a mountain. So from your point of view, is that the definition? Is that the analogy or the metaphor for an adventure?
Adventure for me is anything where the environment is uncontrolled and the outcome is uncertain. And really underneath that, relationships, businesses, personal growth, meditation, climbing a mountain, it's all an adventure. And we can bring that spirit of adventure into everything that we do and into our leadership. So to answer your question, to put a name on my ideal client, it's an adventure conscious leader. It's a leader who is having a conversation on at least some level around consciousness and spirituality, and who understands the concept of adventure as an attitude rather than adventure as an activity.
Adventure as an attitude. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, Tom?
Yeah. So a lot of people, like to go on hikes at the weekend. They like to go and visit foreign countries. They like to go on holiday. They like to do stuff. And they see that as adventure, which it is, because you're going into a new environment. But for me, at its core, adventure is deeper than that. Adventure is an attitude of curiosity. It's an attitude of embracing the unknown. It's an attitude of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. There's a whole suite of approaches to life that sum up adventure to me. And the people that will get the best out of working with me are people that understand what that means. Often that means entrepreneurs and business leaders who know about taking risks, who know about stepping into the unknown, who know about operating on faith, who understand the benefit of personal growth, of spiritual work. But really, Al, you summed it up perfectly. No matter how successful you are, there's something that's holding you back from what you really want. It might be that you're a corporate leader, but you really want to start your own business. It might be that you run your own business, but you want to take it to the next level. It might be that you want to start some philanthropic or charitable endeavor, and you don't know how to pull the pieces together. So it's anyone who's asking the question of what's next. What do I really want? Am I really happy doing what I'm doing? Is there something that I could be doing differently that's more aligned with who I am?
And that's where you come in. And I think I can think of about 150,000 people out there who probably are wondering if the path they're on is the path that they should be on. They've got doubts about it, but they never have time to really think about it deeply. And it's not the kind of thing you can think about yourself anyway. You really do need to bounce your ideas off somebody else who's watching you climb the mountain so that they can help you maybe pick a better face to do the climbing on, or stop and enjoy the climb as you're experiencing it. And that, to me, I think that's your value proposition, Tom. That's something that you offer. Yeah.
And so often with people who are leaders in the business world, it's incredibly lonely because no one gets you, right? Especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're pushing boundaries, in terms of new ways of thinking, new paradigms, new social norms, whatever that might be. People don't get it. And sometimes the biggest value of what I do is just actually understanding and hearing someone, making someone feel heard for the first time, sometimes in their life, that someone actually gets where they're at. And that can be the most powerful thing in that first conversation, to just hear someone say, I understand, right? I get it. It brings people to tears. Because we're so trapped in the doing and the logistics and the saving face that we never express what we really want.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting. And I found myself feeling that that's actually kind of what happened to me when I was planning on leaving my corporate job and starting my business last year. And I got a lot of eyebrow raises and what are you doing? And you must be insane and all these things. And
you're earning so much money. Like, why would you let that go?
Right.
Right. What's wrong with you?
Right. Yeah, exactly right. And even today, coming out with this platform and a Better You platform, I have people saying to me, I don't even know what you're doing. I don't want to hear about it. It's like, it's interesting that you just have to go with what you know and hear, your intuition, and work with a coach like you.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's the intuition is so important. If you look at a flock of birds or a pack of wolves or a herd of caribou or whatever, they're all communicating with nature and with each other in a non-physical world. They're communicating energetically with each other. You look at starlings are the classic example, right? The murmuration of starlings, where they all turn and swoop and they do this amazing dance together. Or a shoal of fish escaping a shark, right? They are, in the whole of the natural world, we're the only animal that has lost that connection with intuition, with spirit, with source, with nature, with God, with whatever you want to call it, the universe. And I've lost my train of thought.
Well, I just thought of a story that dovetails onto what you said. So my mom and I are spending the pandemic in a beach town in New Jersey, so we would never be here in the winter. And I'd always thought that birds fly south for the winter. I thought, there won't be any birds because they're all on the way to Florida or they're going to Mexico. I don't know where they're going, but the birds are here. There's tons of birds here. I can't even believe it. And the reason I brought this story up was I saw a duck out in the bay, and one duck was coming this way and one was coming another way, and they never said anything to each other. They turned their beaks, their heads, and then they both went together. I almost started to cry. It was so beautiful and priceless. Like, why can't we be like that? There was no negotiation or discussion or, hey, what are you doing? It was just, I don't know. It was just so beautiful.
When, listening to you two talk about the beauty of nature and how every other species in the world seems to be in harmony with it, except us. My least favorite word, I think, in the English language is the word should, because everybody believes that they need to meet somebody's expectation about some way that they ought to be running their lives. And, Dr. Jacalyn, you mentioned it. You thought about leaving your corporate world, and everybody's got the word should in the front of their heads, and they're more than happy to share that with you. And
no one likes to get should on.
Yeah, well, all that does explain in the sense of so Tom, if you were coaching me through how to cope with that, how to deal with that, where would our conversation start? What would be your first question to me?
First of all, I would want to get really clear on where you're at. Like, what are you dealing with? What are the challenges that you're facing right now? Mm-hmm. You want to leave your job. And you want to start this business that is going to help people to do X, Y, Z. Like, have I got that right? And I'm going to check in with you. Yeah. Okay. So why is that important to you? What is going to be different in your life when you achieve that thing? What's holding you back from that thing? And what's underneath that? You're afraid. What are you afraid of? You're afraid that when you're afraid of being seen, let's say. Okay, so well, where does that come from? You were bullied at school. Okay, so when you were at school and you spoke your opinion into the world, it was dangerous. You got cut down. So it makes total sense, right? That you're afraid of stepping out there into the world and being seen, right? Because in your world, in your reality, when you stick your head above the parapet, it gets cut off. So the first step is to just really, I've just made up a whole scenario there. But the first step is to really just fully understand what is it that is at the core of what you're dealing with. And then how can we move that out of the way? What are some practices that we can put in place where you can make yourself visible in a small way and learn to trust that that's going to be okay? And just using the same example of I'm afraid to be seen, right? But maybe you can just write one little post about something safe and post that online. Or maybe you can go to a shop and just offer someone help carrying their shopping, right? Whatever it might be, there's like a bunch of little tiny things that we can just, help to move that needle from I'm scared of being seen because I'll die because of my experience of getting bullied at school to I feel that fear, but I know that it's just a story and I can act anyway.
Great. Now, just on follow-up, real quick, for people who are listening and watching, what in your background, what in your education inspires you, teaches you how to ask those questions? Where do those questions come from?
Well, what immediately jumps to mind, I don't know if either of you are familiar with the concept of the wounded healer. It's essentially the idea that we all suffer trauma through our lives, and we can take that trauma and turn it into a gift. We can take the challenges that we have dealt with, which I have been blessed to experience quite a lot of trauma through my life. And really where I am able to support other people is because I've done and I'm continuously doing the work myself. So I am currently working with, I think, 6 coaches for various different things. So I'm in a group about the Enneagram, which is like a map of self-understanding and understanding the kind of core motivations behind why we do what we do. I'm working with like a self-care coach to kind of really up, like I mentioned before, did I mention before? I can't remember. Self-love is like a real big issue for me. And so I'm working with a coach to kind of bring that up in myself. And there's a number of other coaches that are helping me with different aspects of my being and my business. And I have a financial coach, for example, who's kind of playing the role of CFO in my life. And so that's where it comes from, is doing my own personal work. And then there's the studying and the learning that goes on top of that. But really, for me, where I am powerful is in my own deep understanding of what it means to be me.
Great.
And from that place, I can relate to what it means to be you.
That was a beautiful share, and I appreciate that. I work with 5 coaches myself, and sometimes people, what do you need all these coaches for? But each person helps you unlock another part, at least for me, another part that I've kept locked down. Right. And I think it's a beautiful thing. We have to go to commercial break. I'm sorry. We will be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Stay with us.
The world is changing, and your company needs to change with it. Whether it's procurement, employment, marketing, or customer service, it's now more important than ever for your business processes to be inclusive to people with disabilities. Hi, I'm Trish Robichaud with Changing Paces, and I'm here to tell you that making your business processes accessible to people with disabilities is simply good for business. Accessibility and inclusion are the law. But here's what you may not realize. Disability inclusion is an opportunity, not an obstacle. In fact, a recent 4-year study found that companies that fully embraced disability inclusion had a 30% higher profit margin than those that didn't. Your investment in staff disability inclusiveness training can pay off in areas like innovation, brand recognition, as well as customer and employee satisfaction and loyalty, not to mention productivity and profitability. At Changing Paces, we can help you make that happen for your business. Our experts have real-life experience that will help your team gain insight and best practices they won't get anywhere else. This topic is very close to my heart for me, very personal. Dealing with the challenges.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn. My name is Cini, and Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, it's always a pleasure working with you.
You as well.
It's really especially fun when we have a great guest like Tom Lancaster to talk to. Tom Lancaster, vortexstrategy.com. As you and Dr. Jacalyn were talking before the break, I was thinking about a coaching fabric, kind of a material of coaches connected to each other, helping each other. You all mentioned that you have more than one connection to coaches who help you with different aspects of your life. And that makes me think about the starlings in that murmuration, because they're all connected, not necessarily with all the birds, but with the birds that are nearest to them. And somehow the magic of all those connections makes for this murmuration that works really well against predators and is beautiful to watch. So I mean, that whole idea that you can be successful and be happy at the same time is something that happens in nature. Artificially, we haven't found a way to make that happen reliably yet. But working with guys like you, I think it becomes possible for people to accomplish that. So, Tom, a little later on, we're going to ask you to tell everybody how to reach you. And I have a question I want to ask you just before we close the program. But before we get into that, when did you start? When did you stop becoming a seeker and start becoming a Sherpa in a way?
Oh, that is an interesting question. I mean, I have never stopped, and I will never stop being a seeker. That is really the work for me, is to, as I kind of mentioned before, is to continually peel back the layers of my own onion. And it's in doing that that I model that for everyone around me. Not only clients, but everyone. When I am acting in integrity from me, as me, when I am being me, you have permission to be you, and everyone else has permission to be them. So I have never, and I will never stop seeking. When did I start becoming a Sherpa? It's a very difficult thing to pinpoint, because from a very young age, you mentioned right at the beginning, there's nothing conventional about my LinkedIn, and my life has been unconventional from the beginning. I had to fend for myself in a lot of ways as a kid. And so from a very young age, I have been someone that my friends and my family have come to for support in various areas. I've spent my life teaching various different things. I've taught sailing, I've taught fire juggling, I've taught cocktail making, I've taught English. That's what's coming off the top of my head. But I've always been a teacher. I've always been a guide in that way. I've taught rock climbing. And I've always been an entrepreneur as well. I've always worked for myself in one way or another. The direct answer to your question is I have been a professional coach for a year. But I have been a coach for many years before that, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yes, it makes perfect sense. And I had somebody on earlier. We just ran her clip, but she was talking about how she's been a coach for a certain number of years, but she's always been coaching. Before she had her business, she was always coaching. So a question I have for both of you. So when you start to do the work, when you start to peel back the layers, you might find that you're in life situations or personal situations or business situations that no longer are in alignment with who you realize you are. What do you do about that?
Well, what comes to mind there is we have this idea of of the spiritual journey of being, it's all about peace and love. And, I just have to find that connection within myself, and everything is magic. And the truth is, it's really hard work. And we come up against stuff like this all the time, right? Suddenly we find that our relationship is not aligned anymore. Suddenly we find that our business is not aligned anymore. Suddenly we find that our whole construct of reality is wrong. I don't want to use the word wrong, but it is different. And this can be extremely confronting. In order to achieve a breakthrough, we need to first have a breakdown. Right? In order for me to get to the other side of a belief, a story, a concept, a context that I have for how the world is, first that needs to come down. And the process of that structure that I've spent my life building around me coming down is extremely challenging, and can feel like, sometimes it can feel literally like I'm dying, because my whole ego, my whole construct of who I am in the world is changing. And so to deal with that, you need the support of others. You need support in your social circles, and to navigate the change. One of the things that I do is I help people navigate the unknown, right? The path from here to there, wherever there is. And and the truth is, you can't do it alone. Well, you can, but it'll take you a really long time to shift your perceptions and your reality by yourself, without someone holding up a mirror and being like, well, so I noticed that you often show up this way. Do you want to explore that and see what that's about? So I don't know if I'm actually answering your question. What do you do when you find that you're in a place of disalignment? Well, my job as your coach is to put you at choice, is to reflect back to you, this is where you're at. I get a sense you want to be over here. Do you want to do the work that is required to get from here to here? No? Okay, great. Now you know that you're over here, and these are the challenges, and these are the ways it's not serving you. But right now you're happy with that and you want to carry on in that direction. Perfect. Yeah. Or actually, I really want to be over here, and I'm going to do what it takes to get there. And the path probably is going to be like this, right? Because we have to unwind everything that we know about who we are and why we be.
Just in listening to you, Tom, there are two payoffs from a conversation that we're having. One right off the bat is that we can all agree universally that the only way you ever really fail is by quitting and throwing it in and walking away. So you're never going to do that. You just don't quit. But then again, if you're not quitting, then you've got a kind of a choice. You can persist or you can change. And I think the real value of a coach, especially somebody like you, is helping somebody who's determined not to quit to be able to understand mindfully what persisting means and what changing means. You don't necessarily have to follow all those footprints on the floor and keep dancing the way you've always been dancing. You can accept a new choreography for your life. And I'm kind of thinking of Tom Lancaster as a kind of a life choreographer. You're somebody who is going to teach me a new dance. Still dancing, but maybe teaching me a new dance, not necessarily to make more money, but to be happier and to be more fulfilled in the way I'm doing the things I'm doing today. I think there's a lot of value in that.
I love that, Al. It's helping you find your rhythm.
I think that's a good way to put it. And I have one question. I know we're getting close to where we have to wrap up, but a question I like to ask, especially of people who are coaches and in non-traditional areas, not accountants, not lawyers, although I'll ask them too. When your clients thank you, what are they typically thanking you for? And what is it about that makes you proud of what you do?
Let me think about how to put this into words. They thank me for helping them to see the parts of their life that they couldn't see. For helping them to make empowered choices about the way they live their life and whether that serves them or not. They thank me for understanding them, for getting where they're at. They thank me for helping them to be more of themselves.
There's real value in that. Thanks, Tom.
That's profound. Yes, thank you so much. One thing I wanted to just share is, as a coach, sometimes you'll do a consultation, at least I found this, and it comes to exactly what you said. They're over here, but they want to go over there, but they don't want to do the work. And they admit, no, I'm not willing to put the work in. And it's kind of like what you just shared about how unhappy you are over here. And when you think about what it would be like to be over here, you're smiling, but you don't want to put the time and the effort in. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, all the time. And sometimes it doesn't show up as that. It doesn't show up as, great, I can see the choice and I'm choosing to stay here. Sometimes it shows up as, I don't want that. Sometimes it shows up as, I can't have that. Sometimes it shows up as, I'm not really interested. And you know, the skill of the coach is to be like, okay, so I get that. Like, this is kind of appealing, but it can't happen because of you haven't got the time, you haven't got the money, you haven't got the. Well, let's just play in a world where we move those things out of the way. What would your life be like over here? Because I mentioned before that the stories and the beliefs and the constructs that we have, they don't show up. They don't show up for me as a story. It shows up for me as a concrete truth. And so when you challenge that concrete truth, everything in my reality conspires to point me back to where I'm already going. And that's why change is so hard. That's why so many people will start something and then go back to where they were, because the reality that we have constructed around us doesn't support us being over here. It supports us continuing in this direction. So to come back to your question, yes, it shows up all the time where sometimes people they make an empowered choice that I don't want to do this work because it's too difficult, or I don't want to face it right now. But it also shows up in all of the other reasons why they can't have anything else in their life that they want.
Very interesting. And then I think also there's times when people might have a breakthrough later on. Maybe they don't work with a coach, but at some point they're so sick of being where they are that they finally want to take the step and they need somebody to help them.
Yeah. The quote that comes to mind is that we only change when the pain of staying where we are becomes greater than the pain of changing to where we want to be.
Well, the value of a coach is to help you find that inflection point so that you minimize the discomfort associated with making that change. If change has got to happen, there's no point putting it off. Let's see if we can't find a path to a positive transformation as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. And it's about solitude, right? It's about, we're here in the woods, right? All we can see is trees. Come out, look at the forest and be like, okay, so if you stay on this trajectory, where do you end up? In 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years, where do you end up? And is that where you want to go?
Right.
And if it's not where you want to go, well, then we've got work to do, because the further you travel along here, the bigger the deviation that we need to make in order to get to where you want to be.
Wow. Well, that's the power of the conversation that you're offering, Tom.
Tom, would you share with our viewers and listeners what services you do offer? Do you have any package services, and where should they go to book with you?
Well, I would say really the first thing is a conversation. And I'm really delighted to have a conversation with anybody. And maybe that conversation is the most powerful conversation that you'll ever have. And that one conversation could change your life. Will change your life. It will change your life. I have a group program. Me and my business partner are running a group program that's called the Zenith Project, which is for founders, entrepreneurs, adventurers, CEOs, pioneers, trailblazers, who don't want to do it alone. They want that community of people who understand what it means to be operating in the unknown, what it means to operate on faith, to take risks, to just kind of pursue the vision until the vision is realized. I talked about that loneliness before. So that's a kind of formal thing that we do. That's a 6-month program that we're in the process of filling right now. And other than that, it's really a very individually tailored experience. So I would say if anybody wants to just have a chat about what might be possible in their life, reach out to me, send me an email, tom@vortexstrategy.com, get me on Instagram, climbing_Tom, or find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. And I can't stress it enough. I'm really genuinely happy to have a conversation with anyone.
Great.
Thank you, Tom. And just for people who are listening, it's Tom at Vortex, VORTEX strategy, STRATEGY.com.
Correct.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being a phenomenal guest, Tom. It's been great having you here.
Thank you so much for the conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed this time with you, Dr. Jacalyn and Al. It really has been a pleasure, and I hope it's been valuable for your audience.
I'm sure it has.
It absolutely has, yes. And we hope to see you on A Better You sometime in the future.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
Okay, perfect. We'll see you backstage in just a moment. Thank you. Al, another fabulous guest with
terrific guest, and not on the beaten path, which I love. I love those kinds of conversations.
I do too. And again, I have to thank you because of the Lunch Club connection, and that's how I met Tom, and you introduced me to Lunch Club.
There are the artificial intelligence buddies at the Lunch Club, lunchclub.com. They do a really great job connecting. No charge. They still don't they still don't charge for that. And it's a great way to meet people and have interesting conversations like the one we're having with Tom. So,
yes. And we've got 2 more shows coming up today. One at 4:00, A Better You, lessons from the best coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. We will be receiving a 15-minute lesson from Pat Roquet, Rock on Success. And she is also a phenomenal coach. And then at 5:00, we are interviewing on a special edition of the business program, Ecom Dave, who helps people set up stores on Amazon.
I have a garage full of stuff that I'd love to get rid of and exchange. I'd love to turn it into money, and looking forward to learning how to do that.
Have you ever had a store on any platform?
I never have. I've thought that would be great. I don't know, for some reason I just stopped short of that, and maybe Ecom Dave can help me overcome that fear of success that I need to empty out my garage once and for all.
I did have a store on eBay, and it was really cool. At one time, I had 60 auctions running at a time, and I was obsessed with it. It was like I was constantly at a BlackBerry. I was constantly checking the BlackBerry to see what was sold and what wasn't sold, and then I shipped all over the world. And it was a ton of work, but it was amazing. I would just start looking around my place, and I go, oh, look at this Chanel Glossamer. Not this, for example. Look at this pen. Yeah, I've had this pen. And you put it up for sale, and someone buys it. It's
pretty amazing.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, thank you again. We've come to the top of the hour. It's great seeing you, Al. And thanks again to Tom and to all of our viewers and listeners. We'll look forward to seeing you again at 4:00 right here. Take care. Everybody. Bye.
Great.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting. I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.